Hey everyone, if you've been around my channel for long, you've heard me talk about how important it is to check your Social Security earnings record every year. Well, the other day, someone told me something about their earnings record that I had never heard before. This shocked me, and I have to wonder how widespread this is and how much it's costing in missed Social Security benefits. You're going to want to hear this. Now, in the past, when I've talked about your earnings record, I've detailed out how fairly small omissions could end up costing you more than $80,000 in total benefits. And most of the people I know who are planning for their retirement want to stay as far away from a mistake of that size as they can. But this is a mistake that's happening all the time, and a lot of people have no idea. But what I heard the other day took this to a whole new level. So let me lay some groundwork here so we're all on the same page. Very few people actually check their earnings record because they just assume it's right. Let me tell you, I've seen lots of mistakes in earnings records over the years. I've seen several cases where someone worked at a company for 30 years and right in the middle of the earnings history, there were no earnings reported. These are much more common than you think, and for proof, you can look at the Social Security Administration's earnings suspense file. When earnings can't be matched to an individual, the money gets sent to the suspense account. Now, the last report I've seen on this was in 2012, so at this point it's 10 years old, and I'm sure those numbers have changed since then. But that report showed that since Social Security was started, there have been $1.3 trillion in wages that could not be matched. And in tax year 2012 alone, the administration reported $71 billion in earnings added to that file. So how do these earnings record mistakes happen? Well, a lot of these mismatches are due to employer reporting errors or name changes, like when you get married, or a number of other reasons. But thankfully, the administration does have a pretty good system for figuring out these mistakes and assigning the earnings to correct records. But nearly half of the mismatches are never corrected. So please hear me. It's crucial that you check your earnings on an annual basis. If your Social Security earnings have been recorded incorrectly, or worse, not at all, it could make a big difference in your benefit amount. Now, what I heard the other day really underscores the need for checking your earnings record. This person had been diligent about printing his earnings reports for the last 20 or so years. This year, he printed his earnings record, and there were 3 years missing. Now, here's what's important about that. These were years that were listed on the report he printed last year. So what the heck happened to them? As it stands right now, we're still not sure. But the lesson learned was that just because earnings are there this year doesn't mean they'll be there next year. So you can't just check your prior year when you do your annual check and say that everything's good. You have to check all the prior years. And making a printed record of these is a great idea. It's very hard to go back 20 years and find a W-2 or tax return. But if you have a printed copy of your earnings record, that should be all the proof you need to get it corrected. Now, we're still waiting to hear what they're going to accept, but I'll be watching this one closely. So let me tell you why this issue of missing earnings is so important. To really get this, you need to understand the first 2 steps in the benefit calculation. This is important, so stick with me for a minute. Step 1 is to calculate your averaged index monthly earnings, or what's commonly referred to as AIM. And then in step 2, you simply add that AIM to the benefits formula. So let's cover each of these steps just a little deeper so the conversation on missing earnings will make a little bit more sense here. To calculate your averaged index monthly earnings, the Social Security Administration will inflate all of your historical earnings to account for economy-wide inflation, to bring everything up to today's wage level. They do this on your earnings through age 59, and everything at 60 or later is not inflated, but just used in the calculation at face value. And once they have all of your earnings, they take out the highest 35 years, sum them up to get the averaged, and then divide by 420, which will give them the monthly average. And at this point, the administration has an accurate count on your earnings history, and it's time to put your individual averaged index monthly earnings through the formula. Now, it's important to note that the formula which is used is the formula in place the year you turn 62 or the year you become disabled or die if either of those happen before 62. So let's go through a quick example of how your average earnings go through the formula. This formula is made up of 2 numbers often called bin points. Your average earnings to the first bin point are multiplied by 90%. average earnings between the first and second bin point are multiplied by 32%. And then anything that's over the second bin point is multiplied by 15%. And for this example, let's just assume that your average monthly came up to $7,000. Once you run this through the formula and sum up the results of each band, you have a total of $2,692. That's your primary insurance amount, also referred to as your PIA. This is the amount you can receive at your full retirement age, but it's also the amount that your auxiliary benefits are keyed off of, like spousal benefits, survivor benefits, or children's benefits. So this number is really, really important. And the determination of this number goes back to your specific earnings. So if your earnings are off, this number will be wrong. So let me show you an example of how missed earnings can affect your benefit. I calculated the benefits of an individual who earned exactly the national average wage index for 35 years. Now, I could have used much higher earnings and exaggerated these results, but I wanted to keep this in line with the average. Then I calculated what would happen if this individual had a mistake where the first year of earnings was missing, and then the first 2 years, and then the first 3, the first 4, and then the first 5 years were missing. I calculated the total cumulative benefit paid out over a 20-year retirement and assumed that benefits would increase by 2% annually. So here were the results. If the first year of earnings were missing, that would be about $11,000 in benefits that wouldn't be paid over the 20-year retirement. For 2 years, that increases to just over $20,000. At 3 years, it's about $33,000. At 4 years, that mistake is about $44,000. And for missing the first 5 years, it's just over $55,000. Now, I don't think anyone would disagree that $55,000 is a lot of money in retirement, especially when you consider that it was from a mistake that was really pretty easy to avoid. But it gets worse. Remember the bottom number from the benefit calculation, the PIA, that controls not only how much in benefits someone receives at their full retirement age, but it also controls the amount of spousal benefits that are paid. So let's take this a step further and assume that you have a spouse who will be collecting their entire benefit as a spousal payment. Then the numbers change because not only is your number lower, theirs will be lower as well. Now, for missing the first year of earnings, it's going to cost nearly $17,000 in lifetime benefits. At 2 years, that's $33,000. At 3 years, that's right at $50,000. At 4 years, it's $67,000. And if you had a mistake where the first 5 years were missing, that would be an $80,000 mistake. And again, it's all from a mistake that could have been avoided with just a few minutes of work. So I don't want you to let another day go by without checking your earnings record. These earnings should be updated for the prior year by the middle of the year. So right now you should be able to see your 2021 earnings updated. So no, there is a little lag there. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but here's what you need to do to check yours. Just go to your My SSA account. Click on the tab that says View Earnings History. Now the layout of the website may have changed since this screenshot, and they're getting ready to roll out a new site, but I can tell you it's still going to be there on the first page somewhere. Once you have your earnings history pulled up, just go down to the numbers and make sure you don't see anything that immediately stands out. Pay careful attention to the years where you may have changed jobs, had a buyout at your company, or got married, changed your name. Those are the most likely times you'll see a mistake, but if nothing stands out immediately, go back and look at the amounts. A mistake isn't always going to be a year of no earnings recorded. There could be earnings recorded in the wrong amount due to a simple clerical error. And finally, either print it and save a paper copy or download it and save it to your preferred online storage. You may need it one day. So then this brings up, what happens if your earnings history isn't right? If there's a mistake, how do you go about correcting it? Now, I'm going to put a link to this in the description, but there's a Social Security publication that discusses this, and here's the quick summary to it. First, you want to get your proof of income. This could be tax returns, W-2s, 1099s, prior year's records of their earnings from their site, and there's a few other documents you could use too. But if you can't find these, don't let the administration tell you, sorry, there's nothing that can be done. In their manual, they plainly state that an oral or written statement from the employer will serve as evidence of wages. Now, you want to let them guide you here, but don't be afraid to show them their own rules. And I'm going to link those up below as well. When you're correcting the earnings record, you may have to fill out one of their forms. They may do it for you. But once you get that income proof, you just call the main office or your local office, and they'll walk you through what to do next. But whatever you do, don't turn a blind eye to your earnings record and just assume everything is fine. Make sure today, check it, so your family will get all the benefits that you have coming. Thanks for watching.